Yo, dog, Kenny Boucher here. Next Level Painting, hitting you up on the literal best of all days, coming to you from the Beats Lab in Hollywood, California. We're doing it again. This is a sponsored painting tutorial. Shout out to Titan Forge. We're going to be showing off some of their 3D printed systems here. The one in the white 3D Systems expensive AF printer. The one in the black is an Anycubic Photon budget printer. Yo, literally some of the best quality you can hit on the market for less than $500 USD. Here's the thing with these guys. They're pushing the Patreon page because you can get those clutch STL files and print your own. So definitely check out their Patreon page /Titan Forge Minis. Guys, what I'm going to do here today is compare the home print job compared to the super expensive printer. Now, what I did was I washed the one on the left here just so I can really see the details. Undeniably has sharper details than the one on the right. Undeniable. And it should, for the cost of that 3D printer. Now, what we're going to try to do here is take the home print job and try to make it look good. So it's black. I did a light dry brush on it so I can see some of the details, and we're going to do a quick Zenthio highlight to start observing the details, seeing what we can do with them, if the softer nature of some of the smaller details will really get in the way of our paint job, using more of a traditional Next Level Painting 101 system. We're definitely going to do some exciting airbrushing. And I'm going to wash it just for the sake of science. I want to see all the details pop with the wash. We'll come back and do some glazing after that. So what we're doing is a classic pre-highlight. It was black, it's gray, it's white now. We're just trying to make some of the highlights pop from the top. He's got like a lighter underbelly, and this is the Hori Mizu, like koi fish rider. I don't know. I'm not caught up on this line of miniatures. I'm a big fan of their demon models. Now, obviously, you can always go to their homepage at Titan Forge, and you can just buy their awesome 3D Systems prints any day of the week. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump into that burnt orange, and we're going to lightly glaze it over this pre-highlight to really try to see what this koi fish looks like. We're going to go a lot of places in this video as we play around with this model. We've never really worked on anything like this. Truly unique, inspired. The second I get this paint on the model, the first thing I'm going to notice is that the details are there. I was expecting the details to be a little too soft to see after that Zenthio and this glaze. Nah, straight up, they're there. They are a little softer on the edges, which just means you got to work a little harder in some places. But it's not like some of those other 3D printed models I've seen that have no detail. That's not the case. We're just going to start throwing around our weight with some pale yellows, mix them into our browns. We're going to just try to start highlighting up this koi fish. I did look at the picture on their website to see how their artist did it, and I'm kind of sort of lift some of their techniques. I'm going to use a little red in the pot, mix it in with some water, thinned it down. I'm going to just burn some red back into the sides of the fish. I'm just trying to create an electric airbrush workup here. Now we're going to use a little of my favorite color. This is an ochre. These are all pro acryls, and we're going to use a little burn red right here. And we're going to just play around with these to basically lock in some of the details. She has these yellow robes, so I'm just going to quickly block in kind of a darker yellow, maybe a slightly oranger, more desaturated yellow. And we're going to use that number 2 sable hair brush from Redgrass Games that I've been using. I like this brush. And we're just going to lock it in, guys. Now, you heard me a minute ago mention that I might not, in a perfect world, even throw a wash on this model. I might just work the glaze system, really just go hyphy, trying to make it a true masterpiece. But like I said, we need to know exactly what we're working with. So we're going to do all this stuff, OGNLP. We're going to pick out the jade. We're going to pick out some of the other colors. But at the end of the day, once we block in all the colors, we're ready for the wash system. Get the airbrush transitions down, block in the colors, lay the wash down, do any extra bonus details as you see fit. Now, I couldn't really see the color of this cloth in his photo, so I'm just going to go with this jade. We're going to grab the pale pink. We're going to actually mix it in with a little bit of our reds, and we're going to do some quick base coats on the skins. Work up some nice, clean flesh colors. Get some multi-dimension in there. I'm using a smaller brush here. This is a number 1 deck cord from Creature Caster's website. I like it because it has really long bristles, and it lets me get into some of the tighter areas without slapping the paint onto a previously painted surface. So you got to use the right tool for the right job, guys. Gonna get all her features. I was actually truly impressed by the face. I didn't expect there to be any details there. I was wrong. Plenty of details. So we're just going to make this thing happen. Okay. Now, they did tell me that they tried 3 different 3D printers, and I'm not totally a 3D print scientist, but they said they recommend these photon budget printers, like they're in the $500 range, to get these types of models with these types of details. So basically in today's era, they said buy a 3D printer. Pretty smart thing to do because of these types of companies coming out with these STLs and their Patreon pages. You know, you can just go to Titan Forge, subscribe for a pretty reasonable amount of money, and then just start printing your own models right now, and it's solid. So we're just going to lay it down, guys. Nice smooth coats, multiple thin coats. We're going to build up some quick glazing tricks to make her skin look even more beautiful as we introduce more pale pink and less of the red. Then once we lock everything in, we're pretty happy with it. We're going to lock in some wash tech, right? It's going to be interesting. It's going to be kind of aggressive, but we are going to play with it. And I think we're going to get a really interesting result. As it stands, I really love this koi fish, how he looks with just this electric airbrushing. And like I said, if I had a billion seconds, I would possibly go and paint every scale individually, go crazy. But I'm not in the market of spending 32 years painting a single model. I like to use the techniques available to me to make these models look beautiful in a relatively short amount of time. So that's how we're going to do it. As we deploy this glaze technique and we start building up her skin tones, I like to take it to 11 before I wash it back down to 10. So she's a little bit more intense than she's going to be in her final form. And we still have to do similar things to the robes. We got to hit some of the details on the fish, some of the, like the eyes. He's got some interesting stuff we got to do, right? So we're going to grab just like, first neutral gray color in my lineup, and we're going to paint her hair. We're going to paint the trim on her robe. Lots of little details you're going to want to keep your eyes on here. I recommend moving the model into the correct position so you can draw as straight of a line to yourself as possible. I try to avoid windshield wiper motions here when I'm doing these types of thin little lines. So it's always a good rule of thumb, move the model before you move the brush. See if you can get the angle right. For the most part, my brush is only going 1 or 2 different directions. We're going to use some random off-whites on the eye. But I do realize in the box art, he did kind of have some eyeliner on it. So we're going to have to come back and do that. We're going to use the same color to do some of his highlights on his underbelly, his lips, his whiskers, all the silly little koi fish things. He's got some interesting little features and some angry eyes. Look at that little guy. We're going to give him the love and attention he deserves. So we just threw on a couple extra lines, extracurricular highlights. You don't have to, but I'm going to do it pre-wash. We're just going to bang out a couple of highlights on the fins. Nothing too crazy, no dry brushing, just 1 or 2 points of interest. The combo off with the airbrush game, 1-2 punch. Total paint time on this model, I think, was about 1 hour and 25 minutes. Just going through the motions, using the techniques, deploying them, playing with it, and he's already beautiful. Like I said, I'm pretty happy with that, just the way that fish looks right now. But, we got to go a little harder. So I'm going to go back to that neutral gray. I'm going to draw some eyeliner in around the eyes. If you don't worry, if you fuck it up, just go back a step to the kind of the off-white you used. While the black gray is still drying, it's still a little wet. You can kind of just sort of ghetto glaze wet blend into it, and it'll kind of create a little shadow, but also fix the line shape and give you a nice little fisheye. Look at that thing. It looks super dramatic. We'll go back a step, give him a little pupil. My dude is alive. He has a soul. He smokes crack, but, who doesn't? So we're going to drop some highlights in on the robe using our pale yellow, maybe with a little of our ochre. The trick is whatever color you use to put the base coat down, I like to take a little of that color, mix it in with the highlight color, do a quick 1-2 before I go to the true highlight color. The need for a triad sequence is unnecessary if you always marry your colors before you move on. You'll get smoother highlights, smoother lines, better stick. So we're going to carve in some nice little highlights on the black frame by just using a random white mixed in with the same gray. If it looks too aggressive, you can always go back a step to the actual base gray and kind of glaze it down a little bit. But line shape is something I'm more concerned with here, so I'm doing my best with a very small 18-0 paintbrush, trying to drag some really skinny lines in there, make her look her best as we move forward. Hori, Mizu, I love you. Okay, we did it. We're washing now. We're just using an oil wash. This is multi-black from Mr. Hobby. We're using an excessive amount of solvent and very few drops of actual oil. And we're going to just move oil to the model as we go and use more and more solvent. And it's aggressive. We're using a black wash. That's crazy talk, except that it's an oil wash, so we can keep introducing solvent and kind of using our sable brush, which I'm using a sable brush for this. I can actually kind of blend it away from certain areas and give us a very nice depth to the model. That's something that oil brings to models that's not present with more acrylic mediums. So same thing, it's gonna look kind of weird on the yellows and on her skin, but in the subtraction phase, we're gonna clean it up a little bit, remove the excess. You have a lot of working time here. So guys, this is the Patreon page. We're working on the Hori Mizu, as I've said before. This is featured content from Titan Forge. Let's take a look at their Patreon page. Look at all these files you can get. For as little as $9, $10 a month, they send you these files. You can print them off, like I said, using your Photon budget printer, about $500. Literally too easy, guys. I literally need to buy this printer. Like I said, I feel like the hobby is leaving me behind. So I feel like this holiday season, everyone needs a 3D printer. Okay, now that the oil's dried and we thinned it, and we did a little subtraction, maneuvered it around. I've got dozens of videos on my platform that talk about how to use the oil wash. You can notice that the fish has a very realistic and a lot of depth. You can see the oil found his scales. It really did show that the detail is there. I didn't expect that. I'm actually surprised. We're gonna go back to the yellows we were using, and we're gonna just kind of blend some yellows back in using the glaze technique over the top, because the yellows did get a little dirty from the oil washing, and it was just a few strokes of our paintbrush. You can take that yellow robe to 11, okay? Now, it's up to you. The fish is obviously a focal point of the model, and I think he looks so realistic and so natural, but that robe, that matters too. So we're gonna spend a few minutes introducing some highlights, maybe a little ivory in with our pale yellow, maybe even take some of the shadows back into it and really just, work on the folds, because I will say the folds of the fabric are very soft. They're almost not there. So this is a technique I call faking it. We're faking highlights. We're introducing fabric folds that are just literally not there. This is the limit of the print. So there are techniques for creating details that might be a little too soft, like in the skin, around the knee, around her thigh, around her collarbone, and those fabrics. Like, it's not hard though, so you can see we're just building up some highlights, creating the shadows. We did 2 big folds in her right arm. On her leg, we're just introducing a little bit more pale pink and just sharpening the shin bone, adding a nice cut to her thigh and her knee, creating some highlights that just aren't there. And as we move along on the model, you're going to see we're going to create some nice sharp features on the face. We're going to drag some details into the hair. I mean, her face is shockingly detailed though. Very soft skin, very soft robes. But I'm actually really impressed. And so we're introducing some of the original ochre, just in a soft glaze, kind of reinforcing some of the shadows in the robe so it's not just so monochromatic yellow. So that way we can actually have something to pull off of. Now there it is. That's about an hour and 45 minutes of work. Incredible levels of detail. I'm super impressed with this STL file and what this printer can do. This, Photon budget printer, like literally a $500 printer. So, hey, I'm not gonna lie, they paid me to talk about the model, but as is always my protocol, you gotta send me the model, I gotta look at it, and then I decide if I wanna work with it. Really impressive stuff. Support Titan Forge today. Get your STL files. Play on, players.